morning. My name is Adam Quiney, and today what we're going to cover is a thing I call awareness Junkieism. This is, you'll hear this from a number of coaches. It's not necessarily a new concept, but I think it's one that's really worth exploring and talking about a little bit. And it's a trap that a lot of people fall into when they start working with a coach. One of the first things that happens when people start working with a coach is that they start to create new awareness. You start to develop new insight into why you're doing the stuff that you do. You develop an ability to start to see stuff that's been back here, sort of sat in your blind spot, that you didn't know was there, you probably didn't know you were doing, probably weren't even aware of. And it feels amazing because there's all this discovery happening. And when we start to learn about ourselves, we're like, wow, life is going to be different. You can see this when free of working with a coach too. Like maybe you read a really great book. Maybe you read Getting Real by Susan Campbell, or Wealth Warrior by Steve Chandler, or Undefended Love, or one of these great books that are out there. And suddenly you see all of this possibility and you're just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how much better things are going to be. Now that I see this, everything's going to change. But awareness by itself, insight alone, will not generate change. Transformation really, because this is what we're talking about, only comes from taking action. Insight by itself, it's actually worse than no action. Sorry, insight by itself is actually worse than no insight at all, because now, previously we were just blissfully ignorant. And now with that new insight, we can see where we could be, and we're still down here. And without any action, now we're just present to this gap. It's just a new thing to beat ourselves over the head with. We take this gap and we turn it into a club and we hit ourselves in the head with it. So awareness Junkieism happens where people, they keep wanting that hit, that feeling that they got from that first coaching conversation where they're like, wow, I saw so much insight. And they're hoping that it's going to keep feeling that way. They're going to keep being like, wow, they'll write it down. They'll take, really detailed notes in their notebook, and they'll make big, vast cheat sheets and do all of this work to keep the awareness machine going. And feels good, but then the next time they get some awareness, it's not quite as good. It doesn't feel quite the same way that it did before. And then the next time after that, it doesn't feel quite as good at all. And so now what they start to do is they've got their coaching conversation that they're doing every week or however often, and they're reading books, and now they're adding audiobooks to the mix because they really want to keep their path going. They're really committed to their growth. And the next thing, now they're going to seminars, and they start to go to these 4-day retreats and workshops. And then they start to, and it just piles up and piles up. And the problem with that is that no transformation is actually happening. Everything happens inside their head. And transformation doesn't exist in here. Transformation exists out there in the world. It happens when we go and put into practice, when we go and be somehow different, when we go and show up and be different in the world. And that's the action that's required. So first, real problem there is that clients can fall into this awareness Junkieism, where it's just like, oh, it feels so good. I want more awareness. I can't wait. More awareness. I'm going to see everything, and everything's going to be different, except nothing's going to be different. And you can kind of get to this funny point where, as a client, having been there myself, and anyone that's ever worked with me can probably attest to this, you find yourself kind of like, I know I am doing this. Like you're actually catching yourself in the moment of this pattern that you've recognized, and you're seeing yourself doing it, and you're still doing it. You can actually see what's happening. You know why. You're like, I know the only reason I'm not talking to this person is because of that thing that happened in the past, and because I'm worried that this is going to make me sound needy, and I don't have to worry about being needy. I've got this whole new way to relate to this situation. But I'm doing it still, and it's still happening, and oh crap, the circle goes on and on and on. And so it's really important, if you're someone committed to transformation, that you get out of this cycle. And the way you get out of this cycle is you start taking action. You put yourself on the line. You actually refuse to let yourself get one more piece of information, or look for one more piece of insight, or to even consider asking the question, why? Why is the real killer? Why am I doing this? Doesn't matter. You know what you want to do? Go and do it. Awareness Junkieism happens two ways, though. It also happens on the part of the coach. Certainly when I was a new coach early on in my coaching years, this was a big factor. And as a coach, one of the things we really want is we want people to have value. We want people to take value away from their conversations with us. the end of a coaching conversation, I don't give anyone a widget. There's no thing that I can hand to them and be like, see, I'm valuable. It's just a conversation with me. Granted, a life-changing conversation, but that's it. Just a conversation that people are paying for. And so early on in coaching, often, but it can persist if we haven't worked with our own coach enough to move past this, coaches can get really fixated on continuing to give you awareness. It becomes their drive because it feels good for both client and coach. New awareness feels good. People are like, wow, thunderbolt kind of awareness. And it lets us get away with being nice. That's the other part of this is there's no high flame to insight. And so for coaches, what it's important that you do as a coach is that you be willing to push your client to not settle for awareness. There's a point you must be willing to get to where you say, okay, you've got your awareness. You know why you're doing this. This is the third time you've brought this kind of request. It's time for you to hang up the phone and go and do that thing. And your clients aren't going to like that because they want the insight. They want to have more conversations. They want to somehow eliminate the discomfort that comes from stepping out of their comfort zone, which is kind of hilarious when you think about it, but also totally human. And all of us want to do that. Coaches, leaders, we all want to eliminate that discomfort. The truth is we know that that can't happen. There's no way to eliminate the discomfort other than stepping out into it. And the more you do so, the less uncomfortable it becomes, and the more it starts to become just a part of what's comfortable for you. And so as coaches, we also must be willing to not be awareness junkies ourselves, to push our clients past where they're comfortable, to actually shove them, if that's what it takes, out into the cold and say, hey, you're capable. You are a fully capable human being, and you've had way more awareness in this realm than most people need. You know what this is about, and you don't need anything more. It's time for you to jump out of the nest and learn how to fly. And so those two dynamics can be really toxic in a coaching relationship. You can get clients that are like, I want more insight, because it keeps them from ever having to take the scary action. And you can get coaches that are like, I need to give more insight, I need to give more action. I need to give more insight, because it keeps them from ever having to go into what's uncomfortable for them and push their clients. And when you have these two sort of dynamics showing up, both the coach and the client, like the client never moves forward. This person, they're going to keep getting what they think they want, but they're never going to get what they need. And this coach is never going to advance themselves as a coach because they've got a client that's like gung-ho for staying in that safe place. So ironically, this is a situation where your coach is no longer serving you if you find yourself in this, or at least the coaching relationship is no longer serving you because it's not pushing you out of your comfort zone. Your new comfort zone is one where you have an uncomfortable conversation perhaps, and you develop some new insight that might not feel great or might not be comfortable, but you still never have to take that scary action. And that is, it's just lethal to any kind of transformational process. So, awareness junkiism, be on the lookout for it, whether you're someone that's committed to your own transformation or the transformation of others. It is a killer. Thanks a lot.